Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your host, Wes, and today we've got Ralph from Summit Expedition Trucks. Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast, Ralph.
Thanks for having me, Wes. Pleasure to be here.
So before we get into it, just want to remind our listeners that if you're enjoying the 4x4 Canada podcast, click the subscribe or follow on whichever app you're listening to so you don't miss another episode. Also, have a look back at some of our older episodes. A year ago this week, I had a great interview with Ian from Afraid Not Ropes. Ton of information about his made in Canada recovery gear. Ian's an awesome guy and truly has some quality recovery ropes and winch lines. Ralph, have you heard about Bright Source lights? I don't know if you've ever dealt with them before.
Oh, no, can't say I have.
We had a really good interview with Ian from Bright Source last week, and are happy to say that Bright Source is offering the 4x4 Canada podcast listeners a 15% discount when you use the code 4x4 Canada on their website at brightsource.ca. They got a lot of really interesting lights, including this new one. It's a 20-inch titanium T4 light bar, they call it. It's got fog lights, long-range driving lights, marker lights, and strobe lights all in one light bar. You got to watch a video. It's pretty cool. You got to check the video out. It's pretty awesome. So they do a lot of lights where they're mixed. They might have fog lights, and then they also have marker or strobe lights and stuff like that, because they do a lot of work lights as well too. So, but yeah, check them out for brightsource.ca, 15% discount when you use the code 4x4 Canada. Ralph, Summit Expedition Trucks. You guys make aluminum flatbeds. Which one do you call it? Both?
You can call it a flatbed. You can call it a flat deck. You can call it a tray. Probably some other names people gave it. Of course, tray is the Aussie term. Flatbed, flat deck is our Canadian term. So we call it a flatbed or tray, however you want to interpret it. Its job is to maximize your vehicle's carrying capacity in volume.
So you guys are based in Alberta, and you can be reached at setoverland.com for Summit Expedition Trucks, and Summit Expedition Trucks on Facebook and Instagram. So
you bet.
Why do people go to a flat deck? Why do they take off a perfectly good truck bed and go to a flat deck?
The truck box is useless. I hate them. I hate them so much. They are the most useless thing. Like, yes, it looks pretty, but it's so easy to dent up the side, especially as a contractor or using it for work around the farm. Like, the carrying capacity is terrible. Load securement is okay, but it's not usable. It's such a useless function. It's just an aesthetic piece. The most you can do is throw a topper on the back and you can enclose it, but you still have to access it from one point only, and that's from the very rear. So if you have an 8-foot box full-size truck, well, you got to climb in there, and now you have a topper on the top or anything like that. You're on your hands and knees. Oh, don't even. Yeah, it's just terrible. A flatbed just simply offers so much more versatility. Whether you are working it, on the farm, in the mines, out on, you're a contractor, whatever it may be, you're a avid overlander traveling to who knows where. The flatbed is going to get you there and back, with the fact that you can carry your comfort and securement all in one without having to, I buried that at the back of the box. Well, now you can walk around to that side and grab it, walk around to the other side and grab it, And then not to mention, if you want to go a little bit further and you add the underbody toolboxes in the rear pullout drawer, just that alone offers way more storage capacity. On average, a flatbed will nearly double the square footage, the usable square footage, because you're coming up and over those wheels. It's just such a versatile piece of equipment.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I had to kind of laugh when you mentioned about dent in the side. I've got a great big dent in the side of my Tacoma in the box, and I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't happen if I had a flatbed.
A lot of these new vehicles, they're making them as light as possible, right? So the sheet metal is paper thin. You look at it funny, or like I say, you look at it the wrong way, and it will dent. The flatbed is significantly stronger. Yes, aesthetically, it doesn't match per se, but that's why we have powder coating. Paint it black, it'll match anything.
So your guys' beds are all out of aluminum, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Everything's
Yeah.
aluminum.
What good thing we can edit some of this because I totally lost my train of thought. So
It's all good.
So can you tell us a little about Summit Expedition Trucks, how you got started? I know there was a bit of a process with your own Tacoma but how you came up with the idea of doing more of these flatbeds and the canopies as well.
Mm-hmm. So it started out like any great venture as a hobby. Was more so just build one for the Tacoma. And the Tacoma actually started off with an off-the-shelf product that came from, lo and behold, Australia. But it just didn't meet certain aspects and certain features and demand and just the overall. It was definitely, a budget build because why not start there? Loved some of it, but the rest wasn't where it needed to be. Dressed it up, put some nice fenders on it, put some toolboxes on it, really, put some nice taillights on it, did all that work, but I still wasn't happy with it. And then I was like, you know what, let's just design one from the ground up. And I did that. We did that. We did that all together here. And people loved it. They absolutely it was just like, let's see what happens. We're going to build this one because the Tacoma needs something more off-roady, stronger, better built, and just looks cleaner. And we accomplished that after that first, we called that first one our first prototype, because when we learned so much from it, and then our second prototype, our first production model, that really spoke. So the moment we did that, we had guys from Oklahoma, Wes and Overland campers. They bought one for their long box Tacoma. So we had the short box, which was our truck. And then they had the long box. And they saw it and they're like, yeah, we need to have it. And they had a couple other guys that just were gung-ho. They were either getting a camper from them or they just wanted a flatbed. I think we did 3 more decks right after that with them. We did our Jeep Gladiator at the same time as well. And it just took off. People love what we do. People love how it looks, how it comes together. And so it just, it went from literally just sitting there looking at the Tacoma with its bed rack and tent on top on the factory box. And like, man, this thing is just useless. The factory box on a Tacoma, especially the short box, the double cabs, it's tiny. Yeah. And so going to a 6 foot by 6 foot or 6 foot long, 6 foot wide flatbed, you're nearly doubling the square footage because the factory box is 19 square feet. Flatbed's 36. And the versatility that I gained out of that, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then, it just took off from there. So
you bring up a really good point about the campers and, going to a flatbed and then putting a camper on top of that, it gives you that much more storage on the sides, right? Where the bed side normally is, you can make that all storage there. So it just gives you that much storage as well. So I know you've been partnering with Bison. I saw some of these stuff on Instagram and that, and they've got a big Dodge coming out. Going to be using your flatbed with a Bison camper on it, and that looks like a heck of a rig. I think it's one of those AEV prospectors, isn't it?
It's so the customer he bought a Ram 3500 cabin chassis, so the ones where you actually can buy without the box in the back. Now, they are completely different trucks. A Ram cabin chassis and a Ram 8-foot box truck with a box delete, completely different trucks.
Oh, really?
They are not the same. They are not the same. The frame is narrower on the cabin chassis. The length of the frame is actually slightly longer. Everything about it that underneath is totally different. The only thing that's the same is going to be your front axle, your cab, and that's about it. The rest, and of course the engine, but the rest in the back, two different trucks. You can't say, if somebody were to say to us and say, well, I got a Ram 3500, we need to know, is it an 8-foot box truck or is it a cabin chassis? Because if they get that wrong, the deck is different, the mounting brackets are different, the wiring is different, everything is different. So that's a really crucial. You wouldn't think it, right? But
no,
it's significantly different. But that truck there is 3500 60-inch cab to axle cab and chassis, getting our 9.5 foot long, so our longest flatbed, with front storage, so the and room for a spare tire. So at the cab side of the deck, you're going to have what we call our quarter canopy. So it's about 40 by 40, 40 high, or no, not 40 high, 36 high, 40 deep canopy that sits at the front, takes up maybe about a foot of space of deck space. Opposite to that on the driver's side is your spare tire, because of course you're going to access that little quarter canopy more often than you're going to need to access your spare tire, at least I hope.
Yeah.
And then the rest is 8 feet by 6.5 feet. So your very standard flatbed camper, whether it's a Bison Overland, whether it's a 4-wheel camper, whether it's an OEV, all these types of campers can sit on the back of that.
Yeah.
That have an 8 foot footprint. Yeah.
That sounds perfect. And then are you guys on those flatbed campers from, say, Bison or from 4-wheel camper? They go right down to the floor, right? Like there's no notch like there is on a regular bed, or
correct. So
yeah,
on a flatbed style camper, like your entire bed is coming up, because you need to come up and clear those wheel wells, right? So you're coming up about on average 9 inches, 9 to 10, depending on the truck. Some trucks it's a little bit more, just because of how everything's got to sit. But yeah, you got to come up. But as long as your cab over section comes down, which most flatbed campers, they do accommodate for that they bring that down. Your overhang over the front of the cab isn't, have this giant gap of like 8 or 10 inches. It's usually the average of 3 to 4, and it just looks tidy, and everything's there. And the nice thing is, with those flatbed campers, just like a slide-in, you can take it off and use it, but you just have so much more space again, right?
Yeah.
Whether now, it does get a little bit fun when you do a sliding camper on flatbed, because the sliding campers are meant for that deeper box space. But we have done that now with, I think it was a customer out of Ontario, and we did exactly that. We put on a Ram 1500. He had this camper that actually had a pretty low cab over height. And we put 2 side boxes, one on each side, so he had storage there. And he reused his slide-in camper, but he can take those side boxes off, and then he has a flatbed to use.
Perfect. So you've mentioned, customers, all over the place, whether it be down in Oklahoma or Ontario, or whatever. Are your flatbeds, are they fairly easy to ship? Or
oh yeah,
I'm just thinking of a flatbed size. I mean, that's got to be something big and bulky that costs a lot to ship.
Yeah, like on average, they are about $1,200 to $1,500 to ship Canadian. That seems to be the average. It's not too bad when you're considering what it is. We build the pallets. We build a 2x4 pallet, just make something stronger than what's on the shelf. Obviously, you have to make a bigger square footage anyways, and wrap it up real good and ship them out. Whether they're raw finish or powder coated, we take the same care, and we've shipped them all as far as Hawaii.
Wow.
We have a customer in Hawaii. Yeah.
That is cool. So most of the ones you sell, are most of them raw, or a lot of guys getting them powder coated, or do they get them powder coated where they are, say to match the color of the truck or something like that?
Yeah. So it's totally up to the customer, but like I'm looking at in our shop here, we got 3 that are unfinished raw.
Yeah.
That they're going to be delivered that way. Actually, there's a 4th one we're just finishing up. That's also staying raw. But then there's another big one here that's getting powder coated. And I'd still say we're about 65-35 on raw, with the odd ones being powder coated. We have done color matching here, or customers, like you said, when they receive it.
Yeah.
Because we don't install lights, we don't install the reflectors, we don't install any of the finishing stuff in case they want to paint it, and then just leave it up to the customer. But if they have it painted here, well, it's painted, we just finish it all off and ship it out, and then all they got to do is just drop it on their truck and done. So, but yeah,
but you guys supply all the lights and the wiring and that.
Yeah.
Like if it does go out raw or whatever, you guys supply all that, and then
yeah. So or go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I had another thought. I'll ask that after.
No worries. Sounds good. Yeah, so the way that we've designed it is that the deck just ships out with everything you need to make the full conversion, so that you're not running back and forth to the hardware store, or oh, I need this, or oh, I need that. There are some instances where the customer will have some of their parts that they get themselves ahead of time to their install, because let's say it's a one-off truck or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like for a Toyota Tacoma, for example, it ships with everything you need to extend the fuel line to make it work with the flatbed, the mounting hardware. So the brackets will bolt up to the same location as your factory bolts for your box. We supply all that hardware. We supply everything you need for start to finish install, no, regardless of the size of the install. It's designed so that a buddy or a guy and two of his buddies can do the install in this driveway. That was the premise behind it. So,
and if somebody happens to back into something and breaks a tail light or something like that, you guys have all those replacement parts on hand, right? So, or a marker light, or
all that stuff is super easy to replace. It's not anything special by any means. The marker, funny enough, we noticed that the tail lights, you can get them on Amazon. Obviously, significantly more expensive, but we do offer obviously replacement parts in those regards. We've actually had customers back into things, but the way that the deck is built, that deck didn't suffer at all. And the way that we have recessed the lights and everything like that, everything's pretty well protected. So the only way that you would really destroy something is something is poking out and hits those lights. But again, to replace them, no stress at all. Undo the bolts, put a new one, it's done.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing with the fuel filler necks? Because I've had a couple flat deck trucks over the years, and I know other people, and there's different ways of doing it, and there's pros and cons to each one, I guess. So I'm just kind of curious as to what you guys are doing on yours.
100%. Fuel fillers is probably one of the hardest portion of doing a flatbed conversion.
Yeah.
Next to how to leave it mounted on the truck. But they are the thing that gives you the most trouble during the install, everything. That's the most time consuming aspect, in my opinion, anyways, from what, we can do 100 of them over and over and over. They always will take just that little bit more time, just because you want to make sure it's done right. But all we're doing for the most part is for a Toyota Tacoma, for example, like Ville's truck. Ville's truck is a great example of that. The one from Crave Automotive.
Yeah.
We just cut out like a little chunk, maybe call it 6 or 8 inches of the fuel line, because it's just one big long steel piece that Toyota forms to fit with the factory box. We just cut a little bit of that out of there. We add in our soft wall hose, cut it with an X-Acto knife so if you need to trim it up or whatever. Yeah. And that just gives it that flexibility that it needs. And all you need to do is give it the slightest downhill run. You're good to go. As long as that fuel's moving downhill, you're not creating a P-trap or anything like that, you're gonna be okay. A lot of guys, what they tend to do is they bring that fuel filler out, but they have to bring it out so far, they just leave it like horizontal. They don't give any run to it. We've had it where they do have to come out a bit further, or they have to go around a corner or something like that. The initial where it's going into the when you're filling it, that initial filler neck, that has the most degree on it. Then the rest of it can be more horizontal if it needs to, but that initial, so the pump doesn't kick out every second that you're trying to pump up.
So the first 4 inches or 6 inches or something like that's the most crucial. Yeah, I had one. I had a farm truck and had one, and I fought with it because it was just filling it was just horrible, and I ended up raising the filler neck and putting it more towards the front and building a guard around it. And it was kind of a hokey way to do it, but it's the only way I could fill the truck, because otherwise, if it was coming out below the bed, it wouldn't fill. So it was horrible.
No. That seems to be like a lot of flatbeds are also designed to be as low as possible, just because that just seems to be the norm here. Ours are more off-road intended. That's the design. That's what we're building them for. And because we're coming up that little bit more, that just coming up that much higher, it's easier to incorporate the fuel filler neck and giving it that downhill run that it needs.
And that's one thing to also mention, is that because you guys are more off-road orientated, the departure angle on the back end of these things is incredible compared to a stock Tacoma, say for example, where you've got 2 feet or whatever it is beyond the rear wheels.
Mhm.
With the flatbeds, the departure angle is increased dramatically. Huge
Mhm.
difference on them. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we
yeah,
again, Ville's truck is a great example of departure angle or approach angle, however you want to see it.
yeah,
Because on his, we actually built a 5-foot deck. Normally, we do a 6-foot like we did on our truck,
hmm
but he wanted that super aggressive departure angle, and that's exactly what we built for him. And that's our shortest configuration, which is what we call our 60 series because they're 60 inches long.
right, gotcha. So what we're talking about
Mhm.
is Ville from Crave Automotive.
Correct.
He just bought as you mentioned, a flat deck, and it looks wild. It looks so good. If you go check out his personal Instagram is Geo Scout Adventures on Instagram, as well as Crave Automotive on Instagram as well. And we had an interview with Phil back in February, I think it was, and it's actually one of our top two most downloaded episodes. So if you guys are looking for any Toyota parts, shout out to the guys at Crave Automotive. They definitely know what they're doing. But go check out this flat deck they were talking about, Geo Scout Adventures on Instagram and Crave. It looks so good. I have to admit, it looks really really neat. So he's got a bunch of options on there, and you guys have got different options. You basically start with a regular flatbed, right? And then you have
Mhm.
the option of I'll call it a headache rack for lack of better terms.
Yep.
Um, that's not a necessary thing on every one. How come you guys don't make it a standard?
So because everybody's needs are different, right?
Hmm.
And so like we just did one the other day, to Tacoma, access cab long bed. So he came to us with a 6-foot box truck,
Yeah.
and he wanted to build his own headache rack. I said, sure, no problem. So what we do is we bolt on our headboard blanking panel, and it actually makes the deck 2 inches longer because the decks are built with these 12-inch custom extrusions. So
Okay.
every 12 inches, that's how long the deck is. So we
Right.
built them our 84 series with a headboard blanking panel, which is technically the base. But then we also added the front and rear toolboxes and the rear storage compartment. So,
Yeah. The when your box or your flatbeds seem to be quite modular, from my
that's the
understanding.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep it basic. Different mounting kits, of course, for different vehicles and different fuel filler issues for different vehicles. But if you have a
Mhm.
modular, your basic flatbed, and then you can add on all these accessories. So you got the headache racks, and you've mentioned the um underbody boxes. And
Mhm.
so you can put those behind or in front of the rear tires and behind as well, or just more in
Depending on
front.
the truck. Depending on the
Okay.
truck. So, like if you have a double cab short box Tacoma, you're only going to get a box behind
Yeah.
the rear axle. There's no space in front. Um, the one that we just did there, the access cab long box or the double cab long box, or if somebody comes to us with a regular cab, one
Yeah.
of the older trucks, there's enough space to fit a 20-inch or 17-inch toolbox there, depending on what fender configuration they have. Of course, if they're
Right.
running 37s, then they're going to have to go with the smaller front toolbox. But if they're running just stock or 33, you can fit the 20-inch toolbox.
Gotcha. And then one of the other really neat options that I love is the slide out tray. Can you explain to our
Mm-hmm.
listeners what that's all about?
Yeah. So in the rear, we have currently 3 options. So we have what's standard is the tailboard uh, panel, a tailboard blanking panel as well, where your license plate would go. That can be unbolted. Let's say you bought a deck from us, you bought it with just that. That can be unbolted. 6 months later, you're like, you know what? I really want that rear pull-out drawer. Well, you unbolt that, slide the drawer in, bolt it in place, and that's a fully sealed against water, dust, debris, all that good stuff. Pull-out drawer that's 20 inches wide, 6 inches deep, and either 36, 48, or even 60 inches long.
Wow.
Yeah, the shorter they are, the higher the carrying capacity is, just due to the bearings and the sliders.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have up to a 5-foot long drawer that can be fit in there.
That's a lot of extra storage. That's huge.
It's a massive amount of space. Funny enough, we were supposed to install a 60-inch on Bills, and because we're like, okay, 60-inch tray, flatbed, 60-inch drawer. Totally skipped the part that the slider itself was 60 inches. So we go to install it, and like, nope, that's not going to fit. Had to drop it down to the 48, but still, even the 48 on Bill's truck, he was just so wowed by how much space there was. And we have done quite a few other customers with the 60-inch, and they just can't believe how much space that they're gaining with that, while still gaining all this carrying capacity by having a flatbed.
Yeah, I can, the slide out, and then if you get a side tray or underbody boxes on there, I mean, you've got more than enough room for all your recovery gear, all your, camping gear, whatever, right? So another option I haven't seen as much, but is the removable sides. I saw a few pictures. We guys have done some of those. And how tall are they?
So they're 10 inches tall.
Okay.
They go all the way around. You can remove them in about 30 seconds or less. So you can go from a box truck, quote unquote, to a complete flatbed in about 30 seconds. You can store them in your garage when you need to haul something that's a bit wider. We don't recommend traveling with them down because they need that retention of when they're latched in place to be secure. And the other thing too, of course, is if they fold, the one that folds down in the rear would actually block your tail lights. So it wouldn't be legal anyways. But they're such a handy tool to take a flatbed and make it back into a box truck. 10 inches tall may not seem like a large size, but it's plenty. You can throw all kinds of stuff back there. We've used it on the farm, throw hay bales in there. Don't even have to really worry about stuff rolling out. Tools, doing firewood, just pile it back there. It don't matter. It's not just going to roll out on you. But then I've had to do some stuff where it's bigger, right? Like, I don't even know, just something large, right? Just needs to take up more space. Then slide them off, throw that on there, strap it down, good to go. And it's just such a handy accessory. It's one of our most common accessories for most trucks. We have done, like Garrett's truck has them. He just has a canopy on there right now. Phil's got them. He's got his canopy on there right now. Our trucks all had them. And then there's 3 decks we're working on right now that are going to have them as well. So it's a pretty common accessory.
Yeah, my flat deck I did have, for the farm, same thing. It was 2x12s, right? And you they slide into a pocket or whatever, and they're just so handy, right? So what are you guys doing for tie down areas to secure loads?
Yeah, so standard on all of our decks is the rope rail, just like everybody else kind of has like these Aussie inspired decks. But ours is gusseted. So where it's coming down, it's gusseted in behind itself all the way along. So nobody else seems to do that. It's a very key feature on ours. Not sure why they never did, but we did it. We're like, well, this makes sense. You can strap down pretty well anything on the back of our flatbeds just on that rope rail alone. That pipe goes all the way from front to rear, and almost all tow hooks will latch into there. So that's a great point. That's standard on all of our decks. So you have a place to secure your 4-wheeler, your dirt bikes, a large load, anything, you name it, you can strap it down using those. Additionally, we have 2 other options. We have the interior tie down. So that's your very common, your big D-ring style, like that big flush mount one, the heavy duty ones. Depending on the size, we can do 4 as our minimum, up to, for the bigger decks, about 14 of them. And that's a significant amount of places to tie down. It's great when you have the side gates up and they can still tie down. The side gates will still allow you to tie down from the outside. It's just this is cleaner. It's from the inside. But yeah, it allows you to tie down that way. And then lastly, our second option is the more simpler L-track. We just run left and right on the inside of the deck. Up and down, just a place to secure your load, again, with the side gates up.
Yeah, I figured you had to have some sort of good system on there because there's no use having a flat deck if you can't tie stuff down, right? So,
right, pretty useless flatbed at that point.
Exactly. So, what is the average flat deck? Let's say for a Tacoma, what does the average flat deck weigh compared to the weight of the factory bed?
It zeroes out.
Okay, it's
It's a
pretty
net. It's a
even.
net. Yeah.
Yeah,
We just did like this access cab long box. We just did. So we went from a 6 foot box truck to a 7 foot long by 6 foot wide flatbed, and they were the exact same weight. Just the box,
perfect.
just the
Yeah,
flatbed.
yeah,
So that's not including the bumper because obviously if the grid pull that off, I mean, that may weigh another 20, 30 pounds.
yeah.
But at that point, like doing just the base deck, they're the same. There was another one we just did for, I think it was a Chevy, the Chevy Colorado. And with a headache rack, it was 139 kilo or something like that. So roughly 300 pounds. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
so
really,
very
it's
close.
yeah, same weight, and you gain in that much more storage space and that much more like departure angle, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
totally makes sense. Now everything's out of aluminum. What are you guys using for aluminum? Like 6061, or is it?
So all the extrusions are 6061,
Yeah. Yeah.
just because that's your extruded profiles. And then the rest is 5052 sheet that we cut
Right.
form to,
Yeah.
to the design and all the other parts that we have to make. But yeah, the rest is just
So you
5052.
said extrusions. Is your flatbed actually like flat straight across, or is there like grooves in it, like extruded areas in it that
Yeah,
break your
so
knees when you're crawling
it's
on them?
correct. Yeah, it's hard to kneel on our flatbeds due to the extrusions that we're utilizing.
Right.
Definitely aggressive on the profile, but you put a pallet down or anything like that, you barely have to strap it down because they bite into the wood. So it's
Okay.
significant for that. And of
Yeah.
course, because we're up here in Canada, we thought, well, we could use the same as some of the other brands of flatbeds out there where it's a smoother extruded profile, still has the substructure that we want, but it has a smoother top finish. The problem with that smoother top finish, come minus 40, it's packed full of ice and stuff, you still have grip with ours because of those little teeth on there. They stick up just a
Right.
little bit more, and it's more of a safety thing at that point, which is perfect for mine sites, oil field, all that good stuff.
Right. Now, are you finding most of your sales are going to the overland crowd, or do you actually have quite a bit going with the industrial customers?
Yeah, so of course the initial was the overland crowd because of the camper. Like when we started, we were peak COVID. Everything was like we started in 2020. First decks were rolling out in 21. Peak COVID. Like it was just a mess to do anything at that point. And of course,
Yeah.
everyone was just trying to get out and do stuff. And so that was our main focus. And the reason why we actually decided to focus more on the consumer market was if we can handle consumer um, detail and just like yourself when you're looking at something on the shelf, you want it to look good, you want it to function, all that good stuff. Like it not only needs to function, but it needs to look good, and you need to be proud of what you're purchasing. Oil field and industrial and contractors, they just need to work. So we figured, well, if we're going to do this right, we're going to be aiming at the consumer end user market. And so that's been our main focus. With that has now come the industrial market and the commercial side of things. We have how many units now? We have a few units out on commercial applications that are not used for our starting market, and the feedback has been phenomenal because it's living up to their expectations of quality and durability, but it looks
Yeah.
good on their vehicles too.
Yeah. Yeah. The thinking of the mines, they've got a lot of the mines have those old Land Cruisers, and
Mhm.
a lot of them, that totally brings to mind of the flat decks and the mines and that. So it
Mhm.
definitely
Mhm.
there's definitely a big market there for sure. Definitely.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, it's one of those things where we know it's going to be coming, and
yeah,
we want to be prepared for that in production capacity, quality, fit and finish, and just being able to meet their expectations as far as purchasing goes. So,
yeah, yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the canopies.
mhm.
They're basically, you've got your half, 3/4, and full length. So they will go
Mhm.
say half, 3/4, or the full length of the flat deck, and
Correct.
it's basically just a big aluminum canopy, two sides, roof and back kind of idea, and then the sides go out like a gull wing kind of idea, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Correct.
basically, the easiest way I can describe it is to go check out your Instagram or your website at SET. What the hell? I just lost your SET overland.com is, that's the best way to just learn all about your products. But can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the canopies?
Yeah, so the canopies are not just a big aluminum box. There's a lot of thought behind them, like an extremely amount. It took us a lot longer than we had hoped to actually get them rolling. One of our very first units resides in Texas. Customer down there has it on his Tacoma. And if you were to look at that unit compared to our current style, or current, like if I were to, the one that we're about to finish here, two different animals.
Yep.
A lot is the same, but two different animals. The way that we weld them, it's paying attention to where we're putting those welds structurally, aesthetically, the extrusions that we use for the floor and ceiling to make it modular again, so that you're not stuck with a certain configuration. You can change it however you need to, just by undoing some bolts and nuts and moving stuff around. That's a huge, crucial factor. The way that we designed our door and everything like that to keep water out from if it's pouring down rain, you do not want to open the door and be covered in water, or your gear get covered in water just because you open the door. All these sort of things. So they are probably our most intuitive product. Took an extremely long time to develop properly, but they are the bee's knees, the thing to have on the back of a flatbed. Like, one of our goals here is to get our hands on an 8-foot box truck, put a 9-foot flatbed on it, and either do a 3-foot or 4-foot half style, quote unquote, canopy. So you have half is covered by the canopy for gear storage, tools, whatever. The other half is open, with, like the truck that we're looking at is to implement a gooseneck hitch, so you can still use it to pull the trailer, and then or have that that space to throw a 4-wheeler, gear, material, wood, lumber, whatever. It just makes it that much more versatile. Another thing we're looking at, we just haven't done it yet, is a dog box. So half or a certain portion of the canopy or the entire canopy is designed with your dog in mind, so that they can, if they make a mess in there or anything like that, it's obviously breathable. It's out to the open air, while still having the other side sealed. Those are our next challenges on those. But we offer a lot of options to them, but the design behind them is very intuitive and very thorough, to make a product work just as well as our flatbeds do.
That doesn't surprise me, the amount of work into it, because I know it's not just slapping some stuff together and calling it a canopy kind of idea, right? So like you say, it's got a seal when it's closed or when those doors are closed. And I really like the idea of, on a full-size truck, a half canopy and then the back half open, so that you could run, say, a quad up from the side and have that behind the canopy. And because I think a quad would fit just perfectly behind a half canopy, and that way you got a nice dry area to throw all your gear in, and you don't have to throw the muddy gear in the cab of the truck at the end of the day. Just throw it in the back of that, that half canopy. Have a section in there that you don't care if it gets muddy or not, right? So to me, that totally makes sense. Have some under deck storage on the side for some your heavy gear and some of the other stuff like that, and you're all set. So now there's a lot of other options that you guys have got as well, when it comes to, say, more to the overland side with the canopies and that, like water tanks and electrical and that too. What about something like fridge slides and that? Are you guys getting into that, or do you leave that up to the customer?
So we partnered up with Abri from Gear for Overland. Super great guy. They bring in a great product. We love their tents for when we put them on our trucks for the camping aspect. The Quick Pitch product line is phenomenal. So they offer a regular drop slide fridge for medium and large fridges. So those work great. We just have an adapter plate that bolts up to that to bolt into the canopy. Super easy. And then you have a drop slide fridge. They also have their new drop kitchen that they're going to be bringing out. I think he had it on display at BC Overland Rally. Again, another piece that can totally be bolted in, and you have your whole kitchen set up. We also have designed our own drawers and such. So on Bill's truck, for example, he used an alu cab tilt slide for his fridge.
Okay. Yep.
Same thing. We made an adapter plate. It bolts in no problem. And then to the right of that, because he's got everything positioned on the driver's side of the truck with his quick pitch 270 awning on the driver's side, that whole setup is designed so that he has his fridge there. That's the heaviest item. That's closer to the cab, weight over the axle. Then behind that, we put an 18-inch wide drawer with a slide-out table as well. So they have the drawer to store either cooking utensils or food or whatever, like dry goods. And then they have that pull-out table so that they can pull out the table by itself, or they can pull out the drawer and the table. And they have this whole working area for their inside their canopy for when they're going out camping. And so there's certain options or items that we will build ourselves. Yep. And then there's certain items that just made sense to be like, well, let's just incorporate that existing product into the canopy. Just like a lot of guys in Australia, they'll use the clear view drop slide, which is another one you can get. Because why reinvent the wheel at that point when somebody has something that's going to work perfectly? Yep. And it's designed, it's ready to go, it's robust, it's going to work, it's a quality product. It complements our product line. It was just a no-brainer to go that direction.
Yeah, the drop down fridge and the drop down kitchen from Aubrey at Gear for Overland, I've seen it in person, and it's just like you can almost do it all with just one finger. Almost, it just all comes right down and drops down. That's one thing I don't like about my fridge is behind in my Axis Cab Tacoma. It's behind my driver's side, and I've got to reach in to get stuff at the back. So eventually I do want to bring a slide or a tilt slide out, so I can actually reach the stuff at the back without having to go on my tippy toes. But yeah, that fridge drop down, that is absolutely awesome. I love it. It's cool, really, really neat. So what do you guys do? Do you guys have water tanks as well too, right?
Yeah, so the water tank actually resides underneath the deck in a space that is normally wasted.
Okay.
It would be normally a big open wasted area. Yeah. Depending on the truck's configuration, we can do one or more tanks. They're about 47 liters in capacity. We call it the tanks are also made here in Alberta. They're roto-molded plastic. So we don't have a stamp on them to say that these are food grade, but that's why we call them potable water tanks.
Right.
So whether it's, you want to use it for cooking or if it's for the dogs, that sort of thing, it's perfect. It's a great use of space. We have actually installed quite a few of them on a number of trucks. That white Land Rover 130 you see on our Instagram page, they also have a water tank underneath and it still functions with the rear pullout drawer as well. So you have the water up front, pull-out drawer in behind, and you have all this, extra storage space still with the side boxes again. It just, if you're an avid camper, overlander, or, you just want to have that water somewhere where you can just fill it up and use it when you need to, that water tank is the option.
That is great, because I was thinking it was more of a vertical thing kind of idea, right? And high up, but having it down low, like water can get heavy, right? So if you try and keep that center of gravity down, that totally works. So
that's the great exact idea that we went with, is keep that heavy weight down low. Other companies do have a headboard or headache rack integrated water tank. Yeah. You do have to space the whole thing a little bit further from the cab. It's a great system. But because our system is modular in the fact that if you don't want the headboard or the headache rack, but you still want the water tank, you can still do that with us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I spent a little bit of time with Garrett and his red Land Cruiser at the BC Overland Rally. He's got an imported Land Cruiser that he brought in from Japan, and it used to be a fire truck, and basically took all the fire truck stuff off, and you guys installed a custom flat deck with the canopy and all that on it. I crawled over that thing. I mean, just it's a classic Land Cruiser, and you just have to love it anyways. But
Mhm.
the quality workmanship on your guys' stuff was just absolutely incredible. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about that Land Cruiser and that deck that you guys got on there?
Absolutely. So here's the best part about that Land Cruiser. That's not a custom flatbed by any means. That
No?
exact flatbed lives on Brigade Overland's Land Rover 130, the green one that you might have seen at
Yep.
BC Overland Rally. That same flatbed fits on a first generation Tacoma, whether it's a short box, double cab short box, or the Access Cab long box. It'll fit on both of those trucks as well. So the flatbed itself is actually not custom. And that's, again, the beauty of our design. We'll touch
Yep.
more into that here in a little bit, but we'll focus on this truck. So all we had to do custom, quote unquote, was a headache rack, which again isn't really too custom because we figured if we're going to build one for this truck, it's only going to matter time before we build another one. So that wasn't exactly a custom feature. The only thing that really was custom, I think, was just the way that we had to kind of install it due to the fire truck brackets and stuff. And so like where that pump station came off of. And so, yeah, we had to make the mounting brackets, do a little bit of finessing to make some things work. But overall, Garrett's got the 66-inch wide 72 series flatbed with the Land Cruiser headache rack, the water tank, the rear 48-inch pullout drawer. Originally had the side gates on it, the 10-inch tall side gates going all the way around, and then the rear toolboxes. So he's got everything that we pretty well do. Plus, he's got the interior tie downs, the 6D rings. And he just loves that rig. And it is a great example of what we're capable of in making something happen. Like, we never saw the truck in person until it came for install. We bounced a few things back and forth with Garrett. Garrett was super helpful in getting us the measurements for his mounting brackets.
Yep.
Getting all that dialed in. He came for install, same day. That truck showed up in the morning with Garrett and his buddy Carl. When he actually showed up, the other Land Cruiser was here too. Carl came with his. And we did the install together and everything and just, got it all wrapped up. And he was out on his way the same day.
That is cool. It is such a neat looking rig. It's, but I really love the fact it's basically going back to the fact that everything that you guys do is all modular. And between the vehicles, it's just made just a difference of mounting brackets and fuel filler stuff and wiring, of course, right? But
yes,
that's one of the really neat things about your way you guys have designed everything is for it to be modular. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like the idea was to keep it as simple as we can to maximize production, maximize the cost input and output. With us doing it this way, it keeps the costs down for the customer as well.
Right.
Because we're using the same thing over and over and over and over. Like, for example, double cab short box Tacoma, the deck itself will fit Tacoma, Ranger, Frontier, Jeep Gladiator, Chevy Colorado, GMC Canyon. That deck itself will fit all those trucks. The only things that will change is the headache rack will be different for the Jeep Gladiator because of the narrower body. Right. The mounting brackets, of course, and then the wiring harnesses. Yeah. And I really want to touch on the wiring harnesses because we go to an extent that I have not seen anyone do, and that's make it truly plug and play. Like when I say plug and play, you are disconnecting your factory taillights and plugging in our harness into your factory harness to adapt to our new taillights. That's it. There's no cutting. There's no splicing. There's no figuring out what wire does what. We don't want you to do that. And it's such an added bonus to the overall cost. Our product is top of the line and comes with a price tag to match, but just that alone saves you hours in installation.
Especially somebody like myself who's not good at electrical. I hate electrical with a passion, and it hates me just as much, right? So it's the fact that I don't have to get in there and throw some butt connectors and some electrical tape and try and make my wiring work.
No, the worst ones that we have to sometimes cut is just your license plate lights. That's the only time we have to kind of get invasive, but that's a power and ground. That's super low stress. Yeah. It's easy. Yeah. But we go then as far as blind spot. So your Tacoma may not have it, but a lot of the newer ones or the higher tier trim levels have the blind spot sensors and the rear park sensors. we have the ability to relocate those with our new harnesses. The Toyotas are very easy. We don't have to build a new harness for them, but for the Fords, the way that their harnesses are and the way that the taillights plug in and everything like that, we actually have to build an entire new harness.
Oh,
And we
wow.
do that while still being able to retain all of that equipment. We actually had a customer, he met us at the AOA show in 21. He said, I'm really interested in doing a flatbed, but can I keep my sensors? So we're working on it. We'll hopefully have that by 22. And sure enough, 2022, we installed his extended cab. So like your truck, the Access cab, long box, 6-foot box Ranger with 7-foot deck, front toolboxes, and blind spot and park sonar relocated effectively and working efficiently. Because these computers on these new trucks, if something's missing, they go nuts. They hate it. You have to go to the dealership, get it deleted. You have to de-trim the truck, essentially. Other functions may not work at that point anymore. Why? You paid for it. You bought a Lariat, for example. You might as well keep all these functions. And so because we're able to do that, all the Fords, we relocate these sensors. And as long as they're relocated and they can function, computer's happy, and that's all that matters.
That's worth it right there. You know, that extra step you guys are taking right there, because you're totally right. You know, the computers, I mean, we could go on about how the computers are on these new vehicles, but there's just that little extra step making it all plug and play and easy for the customer. That's worth it right there. So there's another rig I know that's running one of your guys' flat decks, and I can't remember his Instagram handle offhand, but it's a Nissan Frontier.
Oh, Jason Spec. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Mil Spec Frontier or something
Mil
like
Spec
that.
Frontier.
On Instagram. That is a great looking truck. Absolutely love it. It, you know, that the bed just looks so good on that truck. It just suits it. And it really gives you swear it's from Australia looking at it. Right. So it
screams the Aussie vibes for sure. You know, like the way that one built out, he's got 35s on it, everything like that.
Yeah.
And then we did at first we just did what we call, I believe, our Contractor Plus series is what he wanted to start off with. And we did that. We just started with the deck, headache rack, side gates, and the tailboard blank for the license plate. Very simple build. Fenders for 35s. It was a really nice install. I really enjoyed working on that truck when he brought it here. And then later on, he actually did upgrade to the rear pullout drawer and the rear toolboxes. And he just loves that truck. Just loves it. And it really shows you what a difference it makes, because the Frontier aftermarket support is very low. And so for us to be able to tackle those as well is just super, super helpful to people in that market that own a Nissan Frontier.
Definitely. And you guys got to check it out on Instagram. Mil Spec Frontier, I believe, is his Instagram handle. And it is one of the best looking Frontiers out. I would say one of the best looking Frontiers in Canada, for sure. And
absolutely.
I'm a former Xterra guy, and I do like my Nissans, and that's definitely one of the better ones I've seen in Canada. It's just such a neat setup. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Now I've noticed lately that Alberta seems to have a lot of great manufacturers. I mean, we've got you guys at Summit Expedition Trucks. There is Yucatec Campers. There is Sojourn Trailers. There's a number of good quality manufacturers in Alberta. I would say almost more so than in Ontario, and definitely more than in BC. What are your thoughts behind that?
Well, I feel like a lot of us, another great example I will throw out there to that list is Overland Explorer vehicles with their campers. Those guys, they know how to make a camper. We have customers with our flatbeds. OEV makes their own flatbeds too, but we have customers with our flatbeds with their campers on it, and it's just such a winning combo. You know, they're a great bunch of guys there. I believe it's Arnold and Eric. You know, another great company that I think, again, comes from that oil field background. And that's where that all comes from. We all kind of come from that oil field. We've worked our time either up north or directly, you know, in the industry in central Alberta. And that's probably why you're seeing so much more manufacturing here, is because it's already established due to the oil field side of things. We
Right.
were all working at one point doing something oil field related, making product in that field. And as times change, we have to change with those times, otherwise get left behind. And yeah, that's a great example of that. That's why the Yucca Pack exists. That's why those trailers exist. That's why all these different campers exist. There's another one down in Calgary, I think. Pronghorn RV is another
Yep.
great bunch of guys.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of us here that really enjoy what we do and wanted to keep doing something in manufacturing.
Yeah, no, it's really, I was thinking about that the other night, and I'm like, I think there's another one, Expedition Overland, I believe he's got trailers. But I was just thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, there's just so many really good quality manufacturers in the overland industry in Alberta, and I think you probably nailed it right there. That a lot of guys got their experience from the oil fields, and whether they're making something else at the time for the oil field industry and did something as a side project to see how it worked, and then it just morphed into full-time businesses for a lot of you. So, but it's really interesting. A lot of people don't realize how many great companies we actually have in Canada as well.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
and that's one of the reasons for starting this podcast, was to showcase great Canadian manufacturers. We've talked about the guys in Alberta, but I mean, in Ontario, you've got TMR Racing. They do a lot of DIY stuff, and they ship out all around the world. And a lot of the American customers don't even realize that they're Canadian. Right? So
100%.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Ian from Afraid Not Ropes with his recovery gear, and there's also Richard from BC with Freedom Recovery Gear. They both have excellent made in Canada recovery gear. So it's just, a lot of people don't realize how good it is in Canada for us. So
for sure. And I mean, there's one that we just can't leave out. I think it's coastal off-road.
Oh, yes.
That's another one that I think would definitely, especially with their DIY focused, their kits. That's another one that I would definitely recommend to people when they're building out a truck.
Yeah.
And all of us have our distinct features and what we focus on and what we excel in.
Yep.
OEV with their campers, Pronghorn with their campers, Dave at Yucca Pack with the campers there, right? They're all different industry, like they're all different size vehicle classes. Us with our flatbeds and canopies, like that's all we focus on. And then the guys at Coastal, they do all the bumpers and rock sliders and armor and all that sort of stuff. And they all go in the same direction, like the same sort of industry, like the same clientele. But I don't feel like there's a whole lot for competition at the same token, right? Somebody's going to want certain features and they're going to get that from that certain supplier. And it's such a great way to complement it. And again, that's why I lean on that, where a customer of ours had our flatbed, put a camper on it from OEV, and it just shows that, OEV is 3 hours from us? And so both of these great products exist and complement each other while, both hands are being fed. And I think that is something that really makes a difference for, for the industry, and that people aren't just having to, pick one or compete with each other in that sort of sense. I think that's super healthy for Canadians.
Well, even, you mentioned earlier working with Gear for Overland, right? I mean,
correct.
That's, I really noticed it at the BC Overland Rally where, you would have the guys from, say, Off-Grid Trailers standing there BSing with Avery from Gear for Overland, who's sitting there talking with Dave from Yucca Pack, who is talking with so and so, and it's like, you guys are sort of competitive in the industry. You're sort of competitors, but yet you're all sitting around there having a beer around the campfire, bullshitting and laughing, and that's what I really enjoy about the Canadian industry. Everybody's competitors with everybody kind of idea, but I know a lot of people work together. I know there's a few shops that one might be in Ontario and one might be in Alberta, and they work together and they trade they trade products and stuff like that, and everybody's got their little partnerships, but in the end of the day, we can all sit around the fire and have a beer together and for the most
Well,
part,
like
anyways.
yeah, for the most part, for sure. There's definitely some lines that don't get crossed.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the guys from Off Grid, another great bunch of guys. And the fact that you could get an awning from Abrig Gear for Overland and throw it on your trailer there, or throw it on our canopy, or throw it on one of the guys' campers,
Yeah.
whether it's Pronghorn or OAV or whoever. Right? Like there's so much to complement each other that there's no. You don't feel that stigmatism of one to the other. So that's definitely it shows Canadians being Canadians, of just that politeness that just is so stereotypical throughout the world. So
Yeah, exactly. So to wrap it up, the last question that we ask every guest is, what Canadian would you like to listen to on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
Have you had the guys from Off Grid on your channel? I didn't really
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
They are on the
that
list,
would be
but
a team. Another team. Oh, another one we can't forget is Mission Overland. Those guys as well. That's another Canadian company. And if you haven't had the guys from OAV, that would be the other one.
Yeah, no, those are great suggestions. They are on my list for sure. So yeah, definitely great suggestions.
Perfect.
So yeah.
No, excellent.
Is there anything that you can think of that we missed, Ralph?
I think there was one. Oh yeah, the only one thing where I remember you were saying that with Australia and flatbeds and stuff like that, right? There's some inspiration for sure from there. Absolutely, more of the overlanding, touring, that sort of thing, especially with the canopies. But flatbeds have existed in North America since who knows when, right?
Yeah.
Well, since the first truck had wheels on it, kind of thing, right? It's just our use here in North America has not seen the application that we're putting forward.
Yeah.
And it's slowly going to become more popular. There's more companies coming into the U.S. as well that are from Australia that, provide similar product and are of great quality. To me, it's just how do you get treated at the end of the day by that company? It makes all the difference. And we always shoot here at Summit Expedition Trucks to treat our customers very well. Just customer service is going to be the thing that people will look back on. Whether the product is inferior or greater than another product, that's our main focus is customer service. And it's shown us time and time again. And as well as just producing something of top quality, because you see it on Garrett's truck, you see it on Abrie's truck, you see it on all these other trucks. And there's a reason why people pick us for their outfitting. Not only is there a quality that comes with it, but also a customer service aspect. Going just that little bit extra sometimes makes all the difference, and we're happy to do so.
And that's definitely one thing I have heard about you guys from a number of people is your quality customer service. And the quality of the product, I've seen it firsthand on a few different occasions on a bunch of different vehicles, and it is top quality product, guys. It's not easy to work with aluminum sometimes. Aluminum can be tough to weld and deal with your stress cracks or engineer it so you're not getting warping. Yeah, exactly. Warping is a very especially running full length stuff like you guys are.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've seen a number of your product, like say firsthand, and it does all beautiful product for sure. So definitely shout out to you guys for your customer service and the quality work for sure. Once again, we're talking to Ralph from Summit Expedition Trucks out of Alberta, and they make their aluminum flat decks or flat beds or whatever you guys want to call them. And you can see probably the best bet to get some visuals is go to their website at setoverland.com. All kinds of information on there. And of course, Summit Expedition Trucks on Facebook and Instagram. You'll see some of the rigs that we were talking about on the Instagram, the Mil-Spec Frontier and, Ville's new one from Crave Overland, his new Tacoma. And there's the Garrett with his red Land Cruiser rig, which I'm absolutely in love with. And but yeah, check them out on Instagram as well, and you'll see what we're talking about in regards to the quality and about the different designs that we were talking about as well too. So, but once again, Ralph, really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day today. I know it was a busy busy Tuesday always, so I appreciate you
Yep.
taking the time to talk to me. And I wish that Trisha could have made it. She did pop on before we got started, but she's got a sore throat, and we figured that talking would not make it feel any better. So she decided to bow out, but we do miss her. But I do appreciate you coming on today, Ralph. It was a really good chat, and I learned a lot, and I think our listeners will as well.
Absolutely, Wes. I appreciate you having me on the show, and looking forward to seeing more people come to us after listening to this podcast.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I know it's on my dreams to get one of yours for my Tacoma. Maybe it'll help get rid of that dent out of the side of my box.
It's an easy justification for it.
Exactly. I did an episode with Casey 250, and he's got a Gladiator with a 740 horsepower Demon engine.
Oh, wow.
He's sitting on 1 tons and 40s, and I'm like, man, that'd be great. And then throw one of the Summit decks with the canopy on the back of that. That would just be awesome. But then I had to look at my bank account, and that didn't happen. So,
right? No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, with anything quality, there is a price, but it's not something that's just thrown away for sure. So,
yeah, no doubt.
It's a lifetime product.
I definitely agree. I think the idea of flat decks, give you that so much more storage space, especially with that slide out drawer. It totally makes sense for sure. And I know you guys stuff, it's not a $1,500 flat deck, but it's not priced as a $1,500 flat deck, but it's also not a $1,500 flat deck, right? It is so much more than that, and so much more engineering into it, and the quality of the welds and that. So you get what you pay for, as always, right? So
absolutely, that's a saying that is engraved with us for sure. And I always say, buy once, cry once.
Yep.
It may suck a little bit, but the quality, the longevity, the fact that you can move it to your new truck, you can take it off one truck, put it on the next truck. There is a lot of value in that. So and a lot of people understand that, and that's what we do. Why we do what we do. So.
Yep. And they make them for Land Rovers, so that would probably triple the value of a Land Rover. But I have seen a few of them on Land Rovers, so.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Perfect.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks really again. You coming on, and we will chat with you soon.
Sounds great. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Take care, Wes. Thank you.